elegant conference room in the top of one of the gleaming towers that make up part of downtown Los Angeles. The room's far wall was almost entirely of glass, so that the view was nearly agoraphobic. They're predicting that if the big one, big earthquake that is, hits that this section of LA will be 8 to 15 feet deep in glass. Anything on the streets below will be cut to pieces, crushed or trapped underneath an avalanche of glass. Not a pretty thought, but it was a day for ugly thoughts. My uncle Tyrannus, king of light and illusion, had pressed charges against 3 of my royal bodyguards. He'd gone to the human authorities with charges that Reese, Galen, and Ablock had raped one of his court's women. In all the long history of his reign in the Sealy court, he had never gone outside to the humans for justice. Fairy rule, fairy law, or truthfully, she law, she rule, she law. The she had ruled fairy for longer than anyone could remember. Since some of those memories stretched back thousands of years, maybe the she had always been in charge, but it tasted like a lie. The she do not lie, for to truly lie is to be cast out of fairy, exiled. Since I knew that the 3 bodyguards in question were innocent, that raised interesting questions with Lady Katrine's testimony. But today we were just giving depositions, and depending on how that went, King Tyrannus was standing by for a group call, depending on how the depositions went. Though technically charges had not been filed against my men, so was it a deposition without formal charges? I was a little fuzzy on it, which was why Simon Biggs and Thomas Farmer, both of Biggs, Farmer, and Farmer, were sitting beside me. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting today, Princess Meredith, one of the suits across the table said. There were 7 suits across the wide, gleaming table with their backs to the lovely view. Ambassador Stevens, official ambassador to the courts of Fairy, was sitting on our side of the table, but he was on the far side of Biggs and Farmer. Stevens said, "You don't say thank you to the people of Fairy, Mr. Prescott. Princess Meredith is one of the younger royals, will probably not be offended, but you will be dealing with some nobility that are much older. Not all of them will allow a thank you to pass without grave insult." Stevens smiled when he said it, his blandly handsome face sincere from his brown eyes to his perfectly cut brown hair. He was supposed to be our voice to the world, but truthfully, he spent all his time at the Sealy court sucking up to my uncle. The Unsealy court where my aunt, the Queen of Air and Darkness, ruled, and where I might rule someday, was too scary for Stevens. No, I didn't like it. Michael Shelby.
Hear him?
I was going to stop reading. Now let's hope that when we walk down, we'll do it again. Richard, yeah. No, I don't think so.
Oh, so cool.
Do we just pause? Okay. Michael Shelby, U.S. Attorney for L.A. And, by the way, this is a rough draft, so I still have to talk to my friend who's a lawyer and go, would that really be the time to he was here? It's sort of like, what I'm asking him is, if Princess Diana got in trouble, they wouldn't have made it formal, so it's that kind of thing. If royalty got in trouble, what would you do? How would you do it if you had this kind of... Michael Shelby, U.S. Attorney for L.A., said, "I am sorry, Princess Meredith. I didn't realize." I smiled and said, "It's fine. The ambassador is correct. I think you won't bother me." "But will it bother your men?" Prescott asked. "Some of them, yes," I said. I looked behind me to Dole and Frost. They stood behind me like darkness and snow made real, and that wasn't far from the truth. Dole stood black hair, black skin, black designer suit, even his tie was black. Only the shirt was a rich royal blue, and that had been a sop to our lawyer. He thought black gave the wrong impression, made him seem threatening. Dole, whose nickname was Darkness, had said, "I am the captain of the princess's guard. I am supposed to be threatening." The lawyers hadn't known what to say to that, but Dole had worn the blue shirt. The color almost glowed against the rich, perfect black of his skin. So black there were purple and blue highlights to his body in the right light. His black eyes were hidden behind wraparound black-on-black sunglasses. Frost's skin was as white as Dole's was black, as white as my own, but his hair was uniquely his own, silver like metal beaten into hair. It gleamed in the tasteful lighting of the conference room, gleamed like something you could have melted down and made into jewelry. He had tied the top layer of it back with a barrette that was silver and older than the city of Los Angeles itself. The dove-gray suit was Ferragamo, and the white of his shirt was less white than his own skin. The tie was darker than the suit, but not by much. The soft gray of his eyes was bare to the room as he scanned the far windows. Dole was doing it, too, behind his glasses. I had a bodyguard for a reason, and some who wanted me dead could fly. We didn't think Tyrannus was one of the people who wanted me dead, but why had he gone to the police? Why had he persisted in these false charges? He would never have done all this without an agenda. We just didn't know what that agenda was, so just in case, they watched the windows for things that the human lawyers couldn't even begin to imagine. Prescott's gaze flicked behind me to the guards. He wasn't the only one that kept fighting not to give nervous glances to my men, but it was Assistant District Attorney Pamela Nelson who was having the most trouble keeping her eyes or her mind on business. The men across the table gave them the glances men give when they see another man that they are almost certain could take them physically without breaking a sweat. U.S. Attorney Michael Shelby was tall, athletic, handsome, with a gleam of white teeth and a taste to him of someone that had plans to rise above being the U.S. Attorney for the Los Angeles area. He was over 6 feet, and his suit couldn't hide that he worked out pretty seriously. He probably didn't meet many men that made him feel physically weak. His assistant was a slender man who looked too young for his job and far too serious with his short, dark hair and glasses. It wasn't the glasses that made him look too serious. It was the look on his face, as if he tasted something sour. The U.S. Attorney for the St. Louis area, Albert Beducci, was here, too. He didn't have Shelby's tan. In fact, he was a little overweight and looked tired. His assistant was Grover. He'd actually introduced himself only as Grover, so I didn't know if it was his first or his last, or his only name. He smiled more than the rest of them and was attractive in that friendly walking home on campus way. He reminded me of guys in college that were either as nice as they seemed or absolute bastards that only wanted sex, or you to help them pass a class, or for me to be close to a real live fairy princess. I wouldn't know which kind of nice guy Grover was for a while. If things went well, I'd never figured out. If things went well, today would be the only day we had to do this. If they went badly, we might see a lot of Grover. Pamela Nelson was the Assistant District Attorney to the District Attorney for Los Angeles County. Her boss, Miguel Cortez, was short, dark, and handsome. He looked great on camera. I'd seen him on the news often enough here. The trouble was that he, like Shelby, was ambitious. He liked being on the news and wanted to be on the news more. His accusation of rape against my men had all the earmarks of a case that could make your career or break it. Cortez and Shelby were ambitious. It meant they would either be very cautious or very incautious. I wasn't sure which mood would help us the most yet. Pamela was taller than her boss, close to 6 feet in her not-too-tall heels. Her hair was a vibrant red that fell in waves around her shoulders. It was that rare shade that is deep, rich, and as close to true red as human hair can get. Her suit was well cut, but conservative and black, button-up shirt, white, makeup tasteful, only that flame of hair to ruin the almost mannish exterior. It was as if she were hiding her beauty and drawing attention to it all at the same time, because she was beautiful. A sprinkling of freckles underneath the pale makeup didn't distract from the flawless skin. It added. Points at each other. A sprinkling of freckles underneath the pale makeup didn't distract from the flawless skin. It added. Her eyes were green and blue all at once, depending on how the light caught them. Those undecided eyes couldn't stop looking at Frost and Dole. She tried to concentrate on the legal pad she was supposed to be making notes on, but her gaze kept rising and finding them as if she couldn't help herself. That made me wonder if there was more going on than just handsome man and a distracted woman. Prescott cleared his throat sharply. I jumped and looked at him. I'm terribly sorry, Mr. Prescott. Were you speaking to me? No, I was not, and I should have been. He looked down the table on his side. I was brought into this as a more neutral voice, but let me ask my fellow members of the bar if they are having trouble forming questions for the princess. Shelby and Cortez spoke at the same time. Beducci just raised his pencil in the air. Beducci got the nod. My office has dealt more closely with the princess and her people than the rest of you. I'm not having trouble concentrating because I'm carrying certain remedies against glamour. What sort of remedies? Prescott asked. I won't tell you what I'm carrying, but cold steel, iron, four-leaf clover, St. John's wort, rowan and ash, either the wood or the berries. Some say bells will break glamour, but I think High Court she won't be bothered much by bells. Are you saying that the princess is using glamour against us? Shelby asked, his handsome face no longer pleasant.